Good morning. I'm Father Doug Jeffers coming back at you with Coffee with the Callers, and I'm here with
Father James Misko.
And we're here, Father James, good morning.
Good morning, Padre.
We're here moving deeper into Lent.
Yes.
As you can see, we have no pastries
we're bereft
on our
of
table
pastries.
this morning. We have nothing, just the barrenness of the desert. Right?
Someone recommended burnt toast for us this morning.
We could have had that.
Alas, our toaster isn't set up in the staff break room.
Out of commission.
So we're going without this morning.
That's right. So as we're moving into Lent here, our topic for today is the sacrament of confession, which of course deeply corresponds with Lent's themes of turning our back on sin and our face toward Christ and making a new beginning. So Father James, when you think about the sacrament of confession, what are some of the things you think about?
Well, for me, we're physical beings. Mm-hmm. Our church is a physical church. Our religion's a physical religion. We have water and oil and flame and wheat and grapes that are made into the bread and into the wine, and which becomes the body and the blood. We kneel, we genuflect, we sing out hymns of praise, and so this is a physical religion. It's not an intellectual enterprise. So for me, when I think about, even myself, when I go to confession, what are the most important things? I want to hear God. I want to hear what He has to say. When I go and I confess my sins, I don't want to just know that I'm forgiven. It's something about Him saying, I forgive you. There's something about, through the priest who is in persona Christi, saying, yes, I forgive you, don't do that again. That's biblical. He's standing at the well with a woman and he says, yes, yes, I know. Now go and sin no more. So that's what I generally kind of link onto whenever I'm considering the power and the value of the sacrament of penance. What about you, Padre? What kind of things resonate with you?
I think in that same vein, I've also heard it said that this institution of confession and this practice really respects the fact that we're social creatures and that we're not just following Christ out there on our own. We're part of His mystical body, and when we don't follow Him very well, our sins, they of course affect us. They make us worse, but none of our sins, even our most secret ones, ever just affect us. They affect the whole community that we're a part of.
Sure. So, like in thinking of it in this way, that not only do we want to hear what Christ has to say to us, but I think it's important that we ourselves muster up the bravery to say it out loud ourselves. Merton would say that the most problematic person on the planet is the person who listens to only himself. And so confession is this opportunity for us to say, look, I'm not an autonomous being. I'm not the center of my being. I'm part of this community. I'm part of something bigger than myself. And so to be able to say those sins out loud is a powerful expression that I admit that I'm not in charge, that God is in charge. Yeah. The other thing I think is really important as we kind of traverse our way through Lent is to really know the distinction between a venial sin and a mortal sin, and the distinction between the penitential rite and communion at Mass and the sacrament of penance, the sacrament of reconciliation. So, Father, take us through a little catechesis about, what does the penitential rite at Mass, the Confiteor, and reception of Holy Communion, what is the effect of praying that prayer and receiving Holy Communion?
In Holy Communion, Christ is given to us as food. And one of the things that food does for us, in addition to helping us grow and nourishing us, is healthy food helps us to recover when we get a little bit sick, right? You've been sick and you just say, I'm going to eat healthy, the vitamin C and whatever.
Protein, got to have some protein.
Yeah, so there is a medicinal aspect to communion, that as we go through life and we become burdened down with the kind of just the daily faults that we all fall into, what we call venial sins, that the sacrament of Holy Communion is there to help us recover from that frailty and to heal us and strengthen us. And so we can be forgiven from venial sins by receiving communion, by repenting and praying to God, by turning back to Him and away from those things. Mortal sin, in our tradition, is kind of sinful grown or a kind of fully blown sin, right? And that word mortal, of course, means deadly. And that's what it causes, spiritual death. Traditionally we say that a mortal sin has three components. It's something that's seriously wrong in itself, and that we have sufficient knowledge of its wrongness, and we deliberately choose it anyway. And that kind of deliberate thing doesn't happen by accident, right? But that's a willful decision to turn our will away from God and onto something else. And for that, that's what the sacrament of confession can forgive.
Sure. So this Lent, as you're kind of thinking about how you're going to attend to the sins that you've committed, some of those sins are forgiven by the Confiteor and by Holy Communion. And then sometimes you need to go to confession in the traditional sense. But I don't want us to underestimate the value of the penitential rite and Holy Communion. And I want you to be thinking about that as you go to Mass, understanding that this is a real sacred time for God to forgive you of those venial sins that you've committed. So we hope this has been helpful for you this morning to learn a little bit more about confession and just have a few more contact points with the sacrament, so that as you prepare for our penance service coming up on next Wednesday, there's one at 1:30 and there's one at 7 p.m. and we'll have both English and Spanish speaking priests at both of these penance services. So you'll have some food to think about, some food to chew on as you're standing in line. Spiritual food, that is. Don't eat food in line. Just spiritual food. So you'll have something to think about when you're in line. So hopefully this has been helpful for you as we continue on our Lenten journey. May God be with you, and may He open up His heart of mercy to you and pour it into your heart so that you will be conformed to His will. Have a great Lent.